Welcome to another episode of Stories by Greg Kerns. Today I'll be reading Grandma Henri's House. In this story, we're going to hear about Grandma Henri, short for Henrietta, a tough-talking woman from North Georgia who's grappling with regrets from her past and the pressures of raising her 3 unruly grandsons for the summer. As Henri struggles with faith, family, and redemption, she feels torn between disappointment and hope. Will she be able to turn her regrets into life lessons that shape a better future for the boys, or will her efforts fall apart like a batch of burnt chili? We won't know until the end, so sit back and enjoy Grandma Henri's House. Chapter 1. Henri's Reckoning. Henrietta Henri Thompson had never expected to live out her days alone in the North Georgia mountains. But there she was, in her late 50s, living on a small farm nestled far from the main road, was a quiet place she kept with the help of her brother, Tommy, who lived down the street. With her old horse, Millie, a slow-moving cow named Bessie, 2 snorting pigs, and a few restless chickens, Henri kept busy. But most days, it was quiet, sometimes too quiet. When she wasn't talking to the animals, her best friend, Anita, was the one she confided in, the one who understood her better than anyone. That evening, Henri had poured herself some sweet tea and settled in front of the TV when the news caught her attention. There, standing tall and giving a speech, was none other than Marcus Clark, the boy she'd known back in high school, the one she'd laughed with, even dreamed with, before she turned him down, thinking he was too much of a dreamer, the same one she was afraid to date because of his race. And now there he was, the newly elected governor of the state. Henri shook her head, almost disbelieving, and picked up the phone to call Anita. "Anita, you watching the news?" Henri asked, half laughing, half breathless. "Girl, I know. I saw him. You see that smile of his? Always thought he'd end up doing something big, and here we are. He won." Anita replied, her voice warm and familiar. Henri sighed. "That could have been me up there with him, you know. Instead, I married Jack, and where did that get me? Sitting here talking to my cows, watching Marcus Clark looking like he owns the world, the newly elected governor." Anita chuckled. "Yeah, but you were stuck on Jack and his wild ideas back then. I told you, but did you listen? And look where he is now." Henri grimaced. "Yeah, serving life, and I'm left with an old farmhouse and a pile of junk he left behind." She glanced at the wall, which held a modest portrait of her late son, Jack Jr. Henri's heart ached with a pain she'd never quite shaken. Jack Jr. had been caught up in things that went south fast, just like his dad. Only her daughter, Janice, was left now, though Henri wasn't exactly celebrating her parenting record there either. Janice had 3 kids with 3 different dads, no husbands in sight, and a rock star dream that hadn't quite made it past the garage stage. It was the end of the line for her, Henri decided as she eyed the pile of Trump memorabilia her husband had left behind. Maybe she hadn't figured everything out yet, but it was high time she started looking at her life with her own 2 eyes, not someone else's glasses. With that, she grabbed a big trash bag and began stuffing it with everything from the Trump Bible to the gold tennis shoes Jack had insisted were patriotic. When she got to the freezer and pulled out a pack of those ridiculous Trump steaks, she couldn't help but laugh. "Good riddance," she said while tossing them in. "Never did like well-done meat anyway." Anita listened on the other end of the line, laughing as Henri recounted every discarded item. "Good for you, Henri," Anita said approvingly. "Maybe this is the start of something new." Henri paused, a rare feeling of optimism rising in her chest. "Maybe it is, Anita. Maybe it is." Chapter 2. The boys are back in town. It was well past midnight when Henri heard a loud knock on her door. She opened it to find Janice looking frazzled, her 3 boys standing beside her, bleary-eyed and still in pajamas. "Mama," Janice started, not even waiting for an invitation, "I know it's late, but I got this big opportunity. I'm going on tour with the band, and I just need you to keep the boys for a bit, just till the end of summer." Henri took one look at her grandsons, each one looking less thrilled to be there than the last. "Tour with a band?" Henri said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Honey, what band? Is it even one that pays?" Janice rolled her eyes, then hugged the boys quickly. "Just trust me, okay, Mama? I'll send money when I can." Terrence, the oldest at 10, shrugged while Hayden, age 7, just blinked up at her. Malik, 4, clung to Henry's leg like she was a life preserver. She gave them a smile that was mostly for herself, because if she didn't start seeing some humor in all this, she might just lose her mind. Henri hadn't met her youngest grandson, the biracial Malik, and when she glanced down at the small boy, she noticed the big, curious eyes peeking up at her. "So this is my new little chocolate grandbaby," Henri said with a warm smile, kneeling down to Malik's level. "You're so adorable. I could just sop you up like biscuits and gravy. It's a shame I'm just now meeting you. You're 4, going on grown, and I already know why your mama ain't brought you around. People in these parts don't like cream in their coffee, but you're always welcome here." Malik grinned up at her, and then, with the serious tone only a small child could pull off, he announced, "Cash rules everything around me." Henri chuckled, nodding approvingly. "Well, all right then. Seems like you've got some thoughts on your own, don't you?" Janice brushed it off. "He doesn't even know what he's saying. He picks up these things when he's at his daddy's house." Henri stood back up and gave Janice a quick once-over, noticing the car rattling in her driveway with its one good headlight on, high beam. She squinted, trying to make out the shadowy figure in the passenger seat. "What kind of riffraff you got waiting out in the car this time?" she asked. "Is it one of your 3 baby daddies coming back for an encore? Or is it a new scrub trying to make the team?" Janice's face dropped, and for a split second, Henri saw the hurt in her daughter's eyes. She felt a twinge of regret, but kept her face impassive. It wasn't easy to let her kids go down paths she didn't approve of, and sometimes her honesty was sharper than intended. The boys trudged inside, muttering about being tired, and Henri felt a flicker of purpose spark inside of her. Terrence, Janice's eldest boy, stood quietly by her side, observing. She noticed how he watched everything carefully, saying little, just listening. "I'm going to get you talking if it's the last thing I do," she said, giving him a playful nudge, but he just gave her a half smile in return. "All right, boys," she announced, "welcome to Grandma Henry's house of manners and common sense. By the time your mama gets back, you'll be gentlemen, mark my words." Hayden rolled his eyes, but Henri ignored it. She had plans for these boys, whether they knew it or not. Chapter 3. Henri's Bootcamp. Henri's summer plans for her grandson had a clear agenda: lessons in hard work, respect, and self-reliance. And the first step was chores. She led the boys out to the barn the next morning, where her brother Tommy was waiting, grinning at the fresh recruits. "Boys," Tommy said, sizing them up, "we got some animals here that need feeding, and you're going to help." Malik, with wide eyes and curiosity written all over his face, pointed to the cow and asked, "What's her name?" "That there's Bessie," Tommy said. Malik nodded, then raised his fist and declared, "By any means necessary." Henri laughed. "Well, feeding her is certainly necessary, and you just believe you're going to help." Terrence took the bucket Tommy handed him and got right to work, his quiet nature lending him an unexpected efficiency. Hayden, however, kept giving directions to his brothers, pointing out how they could hold the buckets or position the hay better. Later that day, Henri invited Anita over for tea and a catch-up while the boys helped in the kitchen. She filled Anita in on her plans to teach the boys some life skills. "You're really trying to whip them into shape, huh?" Anita asked, stirring her tea. "Yep, I'm going to teach them some proper manners, too. They're good boys, but I see some things that need fixing. And that middle one, Hayden, he's really a little schemer." Henri went back to the kitchen and set the boys up for chili making. "Now, Hayden," she said, "I want you to chop up these green peppers for the chili. Think you can handle that?" Hayden nodded, grabbed the knife, and started chopping. But when he thought Henri wasn't looking, he tossed the rest of the peppers in the trash. When she asked if he'd finished, he smiled, nodded, and gave her his best innocent look. Henri replied, arms crossed. "You think I don't see you? You're a schemer, but remember, Grandma's got her eyes on you. Now pick those peppers out and finish the job right." One hot July morning, Henri decided to take the boys fishing, she figured, something she herself hadn't done in a good 30 years. They piled into her old truck and headed down to the lake, fishing rods clanging together in the back. Now, Henri had forgotten just how tricky fishing could be. She and Terrence tried casting first, but he couldn't seem to get the line past his own shoes. After the 5th try, he looked over at her, clearly frustrated. How am I supposed to get this right if it keeps tangling? Oh, it's a science, all right, she said, frowning at her own mess of fishing line. Just give it a little flick. With that, she gave her own rod a flick, but the line shot out, snapped right back, catching her hat in the process. The boys burst into laughter as Henry's hat flew off, landing in the water. Real funny, she muttered, trying to stifle a laugh of her own. All right, enough laughing at Grandma. Now we're here to catch something, even if it's only weeds. After the 4th time her line snapped, Henri gave up on casting entirely. She settled for showing the boys how to just dangle their lines off the edge of the dock, hoping at least one fish would be foolish enough to take pity on them. Now let's talk about something important while we wait. Henri began, her voice as steady as she could make it. You boys have got a choice in life, just like that fish down there. You can either take the easy bait or swim your own way. But don't you let someone else tell you where to go or what to think. That's how you end up like, well, never mind that, she said, the memory of Jack's bad choices flickering in her mind. The boys looked at her puzzled, but that was fine. Henri figured her pearls of wisdom might sink in one day, just like that old hat she'd lost to the lake. Later that night, after dinner and the boys were in the kitchen cleaning up, Henri accepted a phone call from Anita. And when Anita asked her how the boys were doing, Henri replied, Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing too much. They're only kids, after all, Henri confessed a rare vulnerability in her voice. Anita replied, Henri, you're doing just right. These boys need what you're giving them. You showing them love in a way only you can. Chapter 4, A Lesson in Letting Go. As the summer days wore on, Henri's Bootcamp evolved into a mix of cooking lessons, reading sessions, and whatever else she could think of to keep the boys off video games. She pulled out a book on classic manners, drilling them on table etiquette. It wasn't long before they could set a proper table, even if they grumbled about it the whole time. The real test came, though, when Henri heard about the academy founded by Governor Marcus Clark, a school that teaches more than just books, the brochure promised. Henri immediately thought of Terrence. He was smart and curious, but he needed a little bit of direction. And she figured Marcus's school could be his ticket to a better life. Henri poured herself into the application process, helping Terrence prepare for the entrance exams, even if it meant they had to suffer through a few more of her clumsy cooking lessons and long talks about life choices. The day finally came when Henri took Terrence to his entrance exam and interview for the academy founded by Marcus Clark. She had him dressed in his best shirt and shoes, and his quiet excitement was palpable as they arrived on campus. The red brick buildings, lush green spaces, and wide sidewalks seemed to cast a spell on him. Wow, Grandma, Terrence said, staring in awe. This looks like one of those big colleges on TV. You mean I can go to school here? And they even have a football team. Can I play football too? Henri chuckled. Of course you can. But let's get you into the school first. Then we'll fatten you up for the team. She watched with pride as he walked into the admissions office, his reserved nature melting away as she took it all in. For 2 weeks, Terrence sat on pins and needles. Every day he would run down the long driveway to check the mail. When the letter finally came, Henri held her breath as they read it together. The disappointment in Terrence's face was like a punch to the gut when he saw he hadn't been accepted. Henri pulled him close. You're going to be okay, Terrence, she said softly. You know why? Because your superpower is that you listen and think before you speak. That's what's wrong with the world these days. Everybody's spouting off all at the mouth before they even know what the real story is. But you got what it takes to do something great. Terrence nodded slowly, a hint of understanding in his eyes. Henri felt a surge of pride. This may not have been the path she'd envisioned, but she had faith that he'd make his own way. Chapter 5, A New Kind of Goodbye. As summer drew to a close, Henri realized she'd managed to teach the boys something, even if it wasn't what she'd originally planned. They'd learned that life was about showing up, doing your best, and finding the humor in things that didn't always go right. When Henri felt a mix of pride and sadness as she prepared to say goodbye to the boys, she invited Anita over to sit on the porch with her for one last heart-to-heart before Janice arrived. Feels like a whole chapter closing here, Henri admitted, her voice heavy. I'm going to miss those boys. Part of me wonders if I did enough. Anita gave her a reassuring smile. Henri, you gave them what nobody else could, a foundation. You should be proud. Henri nodded, a mix of pride and melancholy filling her heart. When the boys came out, she gathered them for a final pep talk. She turned first to Hayden, her little schemer, giving him a serious look. Hayden, use your superpowers for good, not for evil. Don't end up like your uncle. You never got a chance to meet him, but if you don't straighten up, you'll meet him before you know it. Hayden gulped, nodding, and Henri softened with a smile. Show folks your good heart, Hayden. I know it's in there. Then she bent down to her chocolate grandbaby, Malik, who was watching her with that wide-eyed look of curiosity. Listen, Malik, she said, her voice gentle. This world ain't always kind, and some folks may not see you for who you are. But find your tribe and lean on them. Black, white, polka dot, or striped, I don't care. Find the people who accept you for who you are, and you'll do just fine. After the boys left, Henri and Anita sat together in silence for a few moments, watching the sun dip below the trees. Thank you, Anita, Henri said softly. I don't know what I've done without you here. Anita squeezed her hand. That's what friends are for, Henri. We help each other find our way. As Henri looked out over the quiet farm, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace and fulfillment. She might have missed out on the life with Marcus because she bet on the wrong guy. She might have spent most of her adult life cleaning up after loser men, but she felt confident she found her purpose. She felt great knowing that her grandsons would grow up to be not only good citizens, but loyal husbands and dedicated fathers. Thank you for listening to Grandma Henri's House, one of many heartfelt stories here on Stories by Greg Kerns. If you enjoyed Henri's journey of tough love, redemption, and Southern-style humor, there's plenty more where that came from. Head over to gregkerns.tv to read more stories filled with laughter, heart, and inspiration. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Stories by Greg Kerns.